What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of Vic's Garage, which from this angle looks like I'm in Silent Hill or Eastern Europe. I have a new to you bike here today, my 5th gen Honda VFR, the best gen, and if you don't agree, we can throw hands in the comments section down below. I've had this bike for about 5 years now, which is pretty insane since most of my friends change bikes every few years and get something different or something new. But for some reason, I can't let this one go. In fact, I can't let the BMW in the bag go either. I definitely have attachment issues, or I'm just a very sentimental guy. Today we're doing an oil change, and my bike has 20,000 miles on it. I change the oil and oil filter every 3,000 miles on it because it's a 25-year-old bike, and I want to take the best possible care of it. Although the VFR is not my first motorcycle, it is definitely the one I work on the most. Called my project bike. My friends and I swapped the engine on it, forks, tires, handlebars, gas tank, throttle bodies, airbox, coolant hose, thermostat, exhaust system, and much more. Which led me to start this series, in which the infinite amount of maintenance continues to benefit both the bike and my sanity. Believe it or not, I actually absolutely love doing this. I truly think I spend more time tinkering on it than I do riding it, although as mentioned before, it definitely gets ridden. Here we see that we need a 3 and a 5 in order to get off the bolts that are holding the left side fairing piece. Let's get to it. I would say that motorcycle maintenance, as most things I suppose, has two very distinct emotions. One is very calm and soothing, gently unscrewing the bolt or watching oil drain out of the pan. The other, nothing but carnage and anger, at least in my case, where that same bolt gets stuck inside of its rubber grommet and now it is spinning freely, and you're starting to hate the bike and your life all at the same time. The back and forth roller coaster of emotions is the thing that always brings me back to working on these things. The adventures, hardships, and the fear that if I don't fix it, it will probably break while I ride it. I learned this the hard way when my friends and I decided to go upstate for a long weekend. My trip already started off with a flat tire, but even worse, I realized that my bike was buckling, twitching, and jerking whenever I went below or around 3,000 RPM. The bike would feel terrible in tight turns. I say this because we were going to a place with nothing but tight turns. But I didn't think about this. The point of adventure is to see where the road takes you, what sights you will see, and what kind of trouble you will get into. Well, this one ended with me on the side of the road, upstate New York, disconnecting and unscrewing my TPS sensor that was causing this issue. I got home safe, but kept two things in mind. 1. Look over your bike, and 2. Take it for a nice shakedown ride before you ride it up 6 hours away from home. One of my good friends finally convinced me to wear gloves while I do bike tasks. I guess I just really loved having oil, grime, and dirt between and around my fingernails for a week, regardless of how well I cleaned my hands afterwards. But with these gloves on, I almost feel like a professional. Which gets me to reminisce the time when I first got the VFR. It was a no-runner, and honestly a no-starter either. At the time we thought it was many things. Old gas, bad battery, the spark plugs, the literal bird nest under the throttle bodies, and the eaten up wires. I looked at everything with such interest, mostly because I didn't know how to fix or take any of it apart. I had no idea where to look, how to navigate, or even what tools to use. I had no idea that soon I'd be deep into VFR forums, the very first forum I've ever signed up for in my life. Online manuals and, of course, relying on the knowledge my friends already possessed. But little by little, everything was coming into place. Things were clicking, and I found myself working on the bike, doing simple jobs at first, and then getting deeper into the belly of the beast. From changing oil as I'm doing here, to digging my way under the throttle bodies to replace the coolant hoses, diagnosing bad coils, figuring out why my bike smelled like gas, changing the exhaust, rewiring the stator to the R&R, and much more. But to conclude this segment of my story, the bike did not run at first because it simply had a bad engine. The piston walls of the mighty V4 were scarred beyond repair. The two front pistons had chunks missing. Nothing eBay couldn't fix though. In about 2 weeks' time, a new engine was installed. If you're following this as a tutorial to do an oil change on your VFR, just keep in mind that you will be needing a 17mm socket to remove the drain plug from the oil pan. You will then need to torque the new bolt with a new washer to 22 pound-feet of torque. And for the oil filter, I use genuine Honda parts. I believe the manual says tighten it to 19 pound-feet of torque, but I just hand tighten it and I trust my forearm strength. So far so good, but don't take my word for it. I want to share with you guys another fun story about the VFR. Since this is the introduction of the motorcycle to my channel, I'd like to talk about the time when I first started dating my girl and I really wanted to impress her with my cool, big, red, fast bike. So I pull up to her apartment, and it was my first time doing 2-up riding as it was for her. So it was going to be a new experience for the both of us. She puts on her helmet, her gear, and we go for a ride. And honestly, it was beautiful. We went through the quiet streets, we went by the park, we went to a restaurant. It was romantic. But at some point I noticed that there was a strong scent of gasoline coming out from under the gas tank. This had me worried. Was gas flowing out over the bike? Was it evaporating too fast for me to see? Was it going to flood the motorcycle? Are we even going to get home? Thankfully we did, and thankfully my girlfriend didn't mind the smell too much, which I'm guessing because she sat in the back. After wishing her a good night, I hurried home and parked it. About a week goes by, and I invite my best friend, and we go downstairs into this very garage to take a look at what's going on. First, we lift up the gas tank, we check for any cracks, for any leaks in the hoses. Then we remove the throttle bodies, which if you have a VFR, you know how annoying that could be because there's so many vacuum hoses in such tight spaces. Nothing there either. And then, right before we're about to give up, with a corner of my eye, in this dimly lit garage, I notice some gasoline around one of the fuel injectors. And I remember that I replaced these fuel injectors. By the way, 2000 CRV fuel injectors fit the VFR. They're way cheaper than if you order the OEM VFR parts. Just a little hack. So I see the leak and it's right around that O-ring. It got crushed. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe when I put it back, I did something incorrectly and squeezed it too hard. But the next day, I was in AutoZone, and thankfully, because you know they never do, they had these O-rings in stock. I bought them, I drove back home, I installed them, and guess what? The smell was gone. And that was a big deal for me, because I would probably battle with that problem for a long time if I wouldn't notice that little drop of gasoline around that O-ring and just how crushed it looked. But it's so tiny, it's hard to see. So that was yet another learning curve and a learning experience when it came to me and this motorcycle. And just so you guys know, this bike takes 3.3 quarts of oil, So I just buy 4 bottles and 3 of them go straight in. And on your 4th bottle, you want 285 milliliters. This is best done with a measuring cup, although most of the time the bottle of oil will have the measurements there for you. Make sure that after you fill the bike up, you let it run, everything's nice and tight, that the oil level then comes up, and you have to make sure that it's about in the middle of that sight glass, and you'd be good to go. I don't exactly know why I love this bike so much. Is it the timeless design, as many fans of the bike say? The single-sided swing arm, the first affordable V4, at least to my knowledge? The whine of the gear-driven cams? Maybe I just like it because it's red and looks fast. Maybe I enjoyed the green analog gauges that guide me through the night, almost making me feel like a pilot of sorts. Or perhaps it's the linked braking system that many people seem to hate. Maybe it's the deep yet calming rumble of the engine itself. It definitely has character, and with an RPM limit of 13,000, it shows off very well too. Or maybe these are just all superficial things that attract me to this brand. Make, model. To go back and answer my question from the beginning of the video, the reason why I can't get rid of this bike to sell it or trade it, it's simply because it became a part of me, a part of my family. Everyone knows me as the guy with the red bike, from my mother to my coworkers. This bike taught me about looking adversity in the eyes and wrenching my way through it. Initially, this bike has given me so many problems that I took it as a challenge to fix it and keep it. We're both very stubborn, but eventually someone has to win. And for now, that's me. Every time something goes wrong with this thing, I'm going to be there to make sure it gets fixed. This bike has never let me down when I'm on the road and got me home in one piece. The best thing I could do is return the favor.